Good evening. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think it's Flag Day, too, so that's really good that we did that. Roll call, please.
Gehrig.
Here.
Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston. Here. Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. The inspection department recommends everybody think about saving energy and decreasing energy bills. Current energy code requires compliance for all new homes constructed. However, existing homes should take advantage of the energy savings. One requirement of code is 90% of all lamps installed be high efficiency, and that means fluorescent or LED bulbs. Replacing one 60-watt incandescent bulb with a 9-watt fluorescent or an LED bulb will save 85% of the energy. LED bulbs last 10 to 25 times longer than the incandescent. Another energy savings idea is installing a setback thermostat for a heating and cooling system, which will pay for itself quickly with an average savings of 10 to 20% a year. The other thing Bruce Thorlson wants to tell you is Amazon is on time, on schedule, and they're doing a nice building, and he wants a little plaque on the side that said, "I helped get this done." So, health. As of June 11th, Fargo Public Health has administered 47,519 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccine is available through Fargo Public Health 4 times each week for anyone currently eligible. Vaccine is provided during walk-in clinics Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and by appointment Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Residents are strongly encouraged to get COVID-19 vaccine to protect themselves, their family, and their friends. They really want to hit 50,000, so we need to get out there and get vaxxed up. Vax Up ND, it's for all of us. Our communication department has recently finished some advertising you've probably seen in the community about vaccines, and we just want to comment that it did a great job on it. The athletes look fantastic, and it looks like they all got their vaccines. Library. The library's Tales and Tales of Summer Reading Challenge is up and running, and residents of all ages are encouraged to register and participate by reading every day to complete challenges, earn badges, and win prizes. Staff from the Audubon Dakota will visit Downtown Main Library on June 16 to teach Birding 101 class to children. And the library's outdoor temporary story walk continues through August 31st on the plaza near the Sodbuster statue. This summer's featured book is What Do You Do with a Tale Like This? By Steve Jenkins and Robin Page. Police. The police are going to pull a switch up on us. The police annual community picnic on June 16th is from 5 to 8 a.m. at Urban Plains Park, next to the Shields Arena. Inflatable games, caricatures, face painting, chips, and chocolate milk will be free while supplies last. Food for the purchase will also be available from Tropical Snow, Papa Murph's Pizza, Dawson's Donuts, and the Hot Dog Peddler. I know a lot of times we've normally had that downtown, but this will be a trial to try it at Urban Plains and see if we can get a good crowd out there. The home rental platform, Dwellsy, has published its 2021 rankings of the best cities in America for renters-based rent prices, availability, employment, schools, and health, and Fargo topped the list this year. We're number 1. The other cities in the top 3 were Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Lincoln, Nebraska. This spring, NDSU urban design architect students under the professorship of David Crutchfield displayed their Fargo 2050, the Challenge for a Sustainable City project boards in the atrium at City Hall. The subject of their designs were based on the 2030 master plan. Students were asked to redesign or develop various design districts around Fargo. Here is our video of the communications department about the students and their projects. They really did some interesting work.
As part of my research looking into figuring out how to bring in the most into a park to allow lots of different diversity in people and activities was a big part of my inspiration into the park. Looking at the arts, bringing in performing and visual arts, bringing in activities for the surrounding neighborhood to join in on.
What makes me probably most passionate about it is the research I did prior to the project learning about these green bridges that we make for wildlife reservations, animals and all that. And they look beautiful and they work, and why can't we bring some of that enjoyment into this area of Fargo? And all of us have lived around campus, and ESU students, you kind of have to live on campus going to college, and giving students a reason to want to walk to class and giving them a reason to get out and enjoy this green space I'm creating for people while making it safe and providing even NDSU this branding opportunity. Come to our campus, enroll, look at what we can provide for you, look at our interactive spaces and all that just really spoke to me as a college student and what we can do for the future.
Part of my inspiration for the form of the building comes from the brick use throughout the downtown, and a lot of the Twin Cities have very much of an industrial feel, and so bringing in this excitement and having a blank space as well as this kind of, you can see in and they can see out, and it connects to both of the functions and just connects people, as well as just kind of creating a more modern look, as well as tying to the use of brick throughout all of Fargo.
So the main concept for the mixed use, live, work, play, everything all in one area comes from actually a few different areas in my life. But then the main thing is I've been a member of USGBC, United States Green Build Council, and I'm an officer for the NDSU Student Chapter. And one of the big things they talk about and preach for more sustainable neighborhoods is walkability and reducing the car effect. And this is the main way to do that. If you don't have to drive anywhere, you're not going to drive anywhere. So that's why you want to have living, then you go downstairs for shopping, like smaller grocery stores, not a bunch of Walmarts, but these more family businesses. And then you walk a couple blocks to your office building. You go work there for a few hours, then on your way home you swing by the gym, and then you maybe go catch a movie with your family that night, all within a mile's walk total.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda moving items 1, 2A, C, 7, and 29 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda for further discussion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 1st, 2021 regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any changes or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 36, excluding items 1, 2A to C, 7, and 29?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. The regular agenda, we go to resident comments. I have 4 people speaking tonight. I'll go virtual first. Brent Mitchell, are you on now? Brent?
Yes. Sorry, I was just waiting. If there is a video to start.
Yep, we can hear you now.
All right. My name is Brent Mitchell. I'm a Fargo resident, and I'd like to address the council today, speaking specifically about the Fargo management hunt and its discussion today. Background on me, I have been fortunate enough and diligent enough to apply and have been selected for the past 3 years to participate in the hunt. I have successfully harvested animals each of those 3 years, providing safe and wholesome food for my family. It's an opportunity that, at least in 2 of those years, had I not been selected, I would not have been able to participate in a hunt due to family obligations. It is a program that I feel is very valuable to the city and very valuable to its residents. I've talked to the chief and talked to the officer in charge of the program this year and found that it is up for a vote for dismissal. I believe that to be a mistake. The program is safe. I haven't heard any safety incidents. I know the police department has that information. I would encourage them to bring that up for public discourse. I know to the concerns of increasing population density, many larger urban areas have far more far-reaching programs. Ours is actually rather limited and quite constrained in the manner and proceedings of harvest. I suspect the stronger problem here is a matter of resourcing and support. I know an officer was provided partial paid through the park district to support this in the past. That position I do not believe is in effect any longer. I would encourage us to discuss and talk about potential ways to help that staffing and resourcing effort for the police department, be it other departments or public volunteer support. I believe there strongly to be public volunteer support who would help in that effort. I've offered in the past myself. And I look forward to hearing more in the public discourse today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Brandon Kruger, you're up next in person.
And just to preface my time, I had a PowerPoint that was ready, but I was told last minute that wasn't able to work just because technology-wise. So I did have slides in the back that I could get a hold of, but there's also slides on my website, but that can wait another time, but I'll begin. So critical racial theory is a huge thing that's become, last week, really flared up. So I want to power through this, the knowledge of critical racial theory. And if you have the slides, go along slide 2. It's an approach of grappling with history or white supremacy that rejects the beliefs that what's in the past is in the past, and what the laws and systems that grow from the past are detached from it, said Kimberly Crenshaw, who's the founder of critical racial theory. There are 5 components on slide 3, but I'll get to those as we move on here. Number 1, the notion that racism is ordinary and not abnormal. Well, I'm privileged in being white. I do not hate myself for being white. Other races do experience racism daily. I have multiple acquaintances of many racial backgrounds in North Dakota who have been attacked for their race. I'm a very antisocial person. I know about 5 people, so that's quite a bit. The idea of interest convergence is only when white and black interests are covered does this change occur. In the case of the murder of George Floyd, it captured the reality of our current system. The world saw what happened and what systemic racism is out there. It removed the veil of ignorance of white people who are willing to listen. The social construct of race. The Dahl test by Brown versus Board of Education. It deduces that racism can also be subconscious, that we may not know it exists unless we are open to it. The Brown versus Board of Education Dahl test says it took black and white children and black and white dolls. They said which one's the good doll, bad doll. The bad doll they always chose the black doll. The good doll they always chose the white doll. Also, social construct race theory. Like Jim Crow laws have evolved. Look at the Berkeley Center murder and how young black and African Americans are more aimed at for crime and for being locked up in prison or jail at younger ages. The next slide shows a chart of how it's 2,306 blacks, and this is a little bit outdated compared to whites, or 150 white non-Hispanic Americans who are in prison. There's probably an updated chart on this, but that's what I was able to find. Idea of storytelling and counter-storytelling. White people, honestly, I know you get flack for this, have been jerks throughout history. We have not been kind. American textbooks are awful at whitewashing history. Nothing ever written bad about American history is in public schools. Did you know that Washington owned slaves and he supported corporal punishment? Did you know that Lincoln wanted to send slaves away when they were freed? How long do we deny Jefferson had kids with a slave? These are a couple things that we miss out that this other side doesn't get to tell. The notion that whites have actually been the recipients of civil rights legislation. Civil Rights Act 1964 prohibits discrimination of race, color, religion, and currently laws passed for several states are making it harder for votes for American African Americans. Thank you.
Tracy Wilkie. Tracy? He's not here. Christopher Cohn?
Yeah, I'm Christopher Cohn, a resident of Fargo, and I was here several months ago. And I was talking about an incident I had, unfortunately, at my apartment complex that has quite a bit of amount of illegal activity, and I did take a picture of what I thought was a drug deal last September, and as a result, I was confronted by the person involved in that, and did take a picture of one of his weapons. He did say he would stab me to death and he would cut me up. This is one of the weapons, and I did describe this weapon to you in detail last time I was here. And police told me that this looked like a handkerchief or a paper towel, so it's not. Obviously, it has this hand around the handle of the weapon. The blade part is inserted into the other part of the weapon. I did put in a complaint to the Professional Standards Board regarding how my case was handled. By the way, I never even got my Marcy's card, which is a policy of the police department here to give those. It's also part of the state constitution. And the investigation ruled entirely against me, that there were no policy violations. Even that was a policy violation. What I'd like to say is that there is no agency that should be in charge of investigating itself. It doesn't work. The Fargo Police Department should not be investigating itself. This should go to, we should create an independent agency to investigate these cases, because they're just going to side with themselves. It's an of course. By the way, and I also told them, please do not rule on this case until I get all the documents of the evidence. I want to see the security tape, and I want to see the still shots. When I did get those, they gave it to me the same day as they gave me the investigation results. He actually has the weapon holstered on the back of his belt. So no, that's not a paper towel or a handkerchief. So I did ask the police, put in a request to see other people's complaints for about a year and 4-month period in February. As of Friday, I asked them, where is that? I've never received anything from that request. They're still looking into that. Thank you.
We'll go to item 38, public input opportunity. Bruce Tarleson, hearing on a dangerous building located at 1033 5th Street North.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Bruce Tarleson, Inspections Department, here on a dangerous building case at 1033 5th Street North. I'm going to show you the pictures first. We had, this is a very strange case, and I wanted to show you how this house started out back in 2013 and what condition it ended up in shortly after that. These are pictures staff found of this house in 2013. The owner was obviously living in the house and took very good care of it. Great gardens, great architecture, an older home, and that's where we start our story. At the front of the packet, you're going to see my suggested motion, and again, wait till the end to make that motion. This property is located in a residential neighborhood, approximately 2 blocks west of Horace Mann School. The house was constructed in 1907 and has been updated and remodeled ever up until 2013. You can see the pictures. It was a very beautiful home at the time. Like a couple previous dangerous building cases, this one is unique in that we cannot find an owner, and we've had no communication with the owner of this house. We could not find a representative, and we couldn't find a mortgage company or family. The situation on this house came to us as a complaint, a junk complaint, of tarp junk in the outside of the yard back in August of 2019. We didn't see any indication at the time that this was any kind of substandard or dangerous building house. We sent the junk complaint to the city attorney for prosecution and worked with them. On researching the property further and talking to the water department, we had found out that somebody had entered this property in the middle of winter and allowed it to run. And there was nobody living in the property that could take care of it at the time. After we sent out some notices, tried to get contact again, we acted on the unsafe structure in August of 2020. At this time, due to many issues and no water service, we acted on it, and we did an interior inspection and found that there was a lot of damage due to squatters and the water. We found out the health department has dealt with this house since 2016 on hoarding, junk, and various grass complaints. The police department has dealt with this property 40 times for calls of service over the past 2 years. The property currently meets 5 out of 10 criteria in your dangerous building ordinance. You'll see the timeline in your packet. We acted as allowed by codes and ordinances. We provided for all required notices and notified everybody that we could. We checked background on ownership. The assessors have provided a statement of valuation that it detests to the deterioration of the current house. I'll show you just a few pictures. It is unbelievable the condition that this has happened over the past 2 to 3 years. Due to inaction by finding any owner, the inspections, the department secured the home on October 1st, 2021. Due to the squatters, in your packet you'll see all the pictures of different conditions. I did want to mention something that came to mind on this one that is typical of the last few that I brought to you, and that's a broken window theory. Just maybe a few years ago, this maybe looked like a normal house, and it started to go down. And due to inactivity, small acts of criminal activity, even the junk, non-compliant with the junk ordinance, broken windows, breaking and entering, it just compounded till the house was taken care of. And the broken window theory kind of says that those little things just, they act as a magnet for other criminal activity. And we decided to take the current dangerous building action and take it sooner than we normally would due to the squatters. Your action on this property will allow an owner or representative to take action. Anybody that comes forward, they will have to approximately August 13th to act. Any questions?
Any questions by commissioners? Is there anybody in public who wishes to speak? Please come to the mic. Are you Bruce Thompson?
I am. Yes, I am. Bruce Thompson. I live at 1008 5th Street North. This is our type of project. We do this all the time. I can give you examples that you can drive by that were just as bad, maybe not as bad on the inside. 910 7th Street North, 434 7th Avenue South, 1613 2nd Avenue South, 1008 5th Street North, which I live in now. It's a beautiful neighborhood. It's a beautiful home. It's too easy to knock things down. This can be repaired. If it can't be repaired, I will knock it down, and we will build a new home there. The garage is great. It's got a fenced backyard. It definitely can either be saved or be taken care of right away. I have a purchase agreement for $65,000 that I cannot find the owner, that we would love to get going tomorrow. And if it can't be saved, there's certainly many housing parts that can be saved. Our biggest issue in Fargo is lack of affordable housing in the central part of the city. We can fix these things, but we can't knock them down. I've done 4 or 5. We'll do more. But I prefer that we don't knock them down. I prefer that we can't even get in it to look at it. So this is the first pictures I saw. I saw the original pictures of what it was. It's beautiful. Cabinetry's beautiful. Woodwork's beautiful. No, this is part of our Fargo history right here. These are the core of what we started with. You know, it's got a paved alley. I mean, the homes are very, very nice. We had the same issue on the northern end of that block when we first moved in with crime and that type of thing. And then we've fixed up, and our neighbors have fixed some of those properties up. So I don't know the process. I've never bought one from the city, but we've bought several others. So if there's an opportunity, we'd like to have that. So thank you.
Bruce, in an answer to his question, what if he truly want to buy for 65 and rebuild, what would we do? How would we do that?
Well, I can truly agree with everything Mr. Thompson said. We want the same thing. We don't ever want to end up with demolition. That's the last cause that can happen in our action. So that's why we allow time. There's 2 months now, and we couldn't find the owner. We do everything we can. We even work with our city attorney to look up histories, and we can't find an owner to contact on this property. So hopefully within the next 2 months, somebody gets in contact with somebody. I'll reiterate that the city of Fargo never takes possession of the property. In our actions, even through demolition, we can act on August 13th if we choose, but that isn't what we really want to do. Even in this case, we can see this house is savable. So we'll hope that in the next 2 months that something can happen with ownership.
How do we know? How do we know if we can buy it or not? We can't find the owner either. I mean, that's the question. It's a process for us. We don't know the process to do it.
We believe that the owner is alive
Okay.
and active. We believe that the water department received communication from the owner to shut the water off after there was 80,000 gallons used in a matter of a short period of time. So they're out there somewhere. We just couldn't find them, couldn't communicate. City attorneys couldn't find them. So there's a better process, warrants through the sheriff department. Maybe there's somebody else that can find them. In this case, being different, there's no mortgage company. A lot of times, you've seen that in previous cases, they'll come out of the woodwork, the attorneys will come out of the woodwork, and we'll work with them. We're working on several for months to try and get a resolution on those. This one's a little different.
Eric Johnson, can you assist on this to try to find that owner and get us moving forward on this?
Yeah, we certainly can. We can sure try.
Thank you.
So by us taking our action tonight, you have to understand, Bruce, that Thompson, that could move it forward so you could purchase and rebuild. And then perhaps can you get in and see the inside?
That takes an act of the owner. We don't have authority to do
Okay.
that. We do it if we need to on emergency measures, but there needs to be somebody. We did contact a personal representative and did get communication from her that her representation stopped a few years back, so she couldn't even allow us in.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this home? I close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Can I make a quick comment too, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The other thing, even though this gentleman is interested in buying it, that doesn't, I mean, that isn't how it works. That has to be open to the public, and there's lots of other options. We have different projects and different people will be interested in buying it. So just because a gentleman is interested, that's great, but that isn't how it works. Can you talk about that, Bruce?
Yeah, the way the system works, let's say nobody did find an owner and we did act, we did demolish, the property becomes a nice, clean property with grass on it. In the end, if no owner comes up, it goes to county for taxes, and then they start discussions on ownership. They sometimes call us. We have programs. We can build new homes on it, and they'll probably offer it up for bid too.
Can I get a second to the motion, John, before I ask? Or do you want a second?
No, go ahead. Second.
Second, Tony. Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just curious, what does the county know? Who's paying taxes? How long since taxes have been paid? Where's that coming from? Where do the notices go?
And we looked that up. We have all the county records. It's still in the original owner's name.
And it's getting paid?
I believe it was current except for 1 year.
So somebody must be paying it.
We believe that he even paid the water bill up until the time of the damage to the house.
Any other discussion? Mr. Strand.
One more time, Bruce. It's really a big change to have your department represented on almost every agenda with the years of lagging of attending to these properties that were getting blighted. And just to take a moment to commend you and your work it's not fun, it's not easy. I know you get into the face of things at times that aren't fun, but good work,
Thank you.
very good work.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Preston?
So, Bruce, this house has been secured again, or that squatters aren't getting in, is that correct, or?
The owner had secured, we believe, within the last year or two, but the squatters took that off. So it was half secured. And when we did our interior inspection, because we knew there was damage in there due to the water, we found out all the other damage that was done. There's a lot of illegal construction, illegal work, and other things.
So the other reason for going down this road, I'm assuming, is the exterior. There's a lot of stuff is not being taken care of. Neighbors are complaining, are they, or?
Yes, we received several complaints over the last year and a half. And the garage I think we secured the garage. That was open and has an upstairs. Somebody is living up there too.
Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrig?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item B, Community Development Block Grant and Home Programs 2021 Action Plan and Budget Proposal. Tia Brasseth, this is kind of like every meeting we like to see you. We amend again, or?
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. I'm Tia Brasseth with the City's Planning Department, and I'll be introducing line item 38B on the agenda for the City's 2021 HUD Action Plan, which is up on the screen here. No action is required tonight. It's just a public hearing. I will be back on June 28th seeking action for final approval, upon which the plan would be submitted to HUD. So each year, the city is awarded with roughly $1.3 million in HUD funds to be used in our community for projects and programs that benefit low to moderate income households and families and individuals. And our focus has generally been on housing and homelessness, and even continues to be more so with the results of COVID-19 and the last 12 months. And there's going to be a lot of residual stuff for that since it's really impacted those communities. So we are currently in a 30-day public comment period, which ends on June 25th. And as a part of that 30-day public comment period, HUD also requires us to hold a public hearing, which is why we're here this evening. It is on the draft plan, which is up on our website. It has been for a couple of weeks. And I'll just cover the related activities and budgets that we're proposing for our 2021 program year, which runs from May to April. It's not with the fiscal year of January. So in the 2021 program year, we are proposing to fund our usual planning, administration, and fair housing work as required by HUD. We are also proposing approximately $135,000 for public service-related activities targeting homeless prevention and diversion, including eviction prevention efforts. And a total of $547,400 is being proposed for multifamily rental housing, since we are currently focusing on single-family homeowner builds with our 2020 grant allocation. That's what you've heard me up here talking about a lot in the last month or so, is those single-family home ownership. Next year it'll be multifamily. And then finally, we're proposing a little over $607,000 for public facilities, capital, and neighborhood improvements, specifically addressing homelessness and housing in our downtown area. So again, the public comment period ends June 25th. No action is required this evening. I have all of the ways that the public may contact us. So through mail, email, calling, you can walk in, we can visit until June 25th. And then after that, we'll be here on June 28th for final approval, and then sending it off to HUD for their approval. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be open to answering them, or we could just move into public comment.
Is there anyone in public who wishes to speak on this? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
No action is
We don't
required,
need
right?
to. No action required.
No action required? No,
Not this
I'm sorry.
evening. No, June 28th will be.
Good, okay. Any questions from the commissioners? Keep up the good work. Keep those evictions from happening. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. Good evening.
Item C, petition for annexation of property described as that part of the southeast quarter of Section 15 and northeast corner of Section 22, Township 140 North, Range 49 West at the 5th Principal Meridian, Cass County, North Dakota. First reading of the annexation ordinance. Donald Crest to explain. Oh, no.
We got Aaron today.
Yeah.
Aaron Nelson with the City of Fargo Planning Department. And before I jump in, I want to note items 38C and 38D are related items. And so as long as it's all right with the commission, I will present these two items together just to save a little time here. We do have two motions at the end, though. So item 38C is a petition for annexation, and then item 38D is a request for a zoning map amendment and major subdivision. The subject property is located on the north side of 40th Avenue North and the east side of County Road 81, just northwest of the airport, and then just south of the new Amazon facility. The intent of these applications is to accommodate future development of the subject property for industrial commercial lease space. The property is currently within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Fargo, and the owners have petitioned for annexation. Proposed annexation includes 51.36 acres, including portions of County Road 81, and then 40th Avenue North, as shown on the annexation plat on the screen in your packet here. The proposed subdivision would plat the property into 4 lots on 1 block and includes additional right-of-way dedication for 40th Avenue North and 37th Street North. The subdivision includes a subdivision waiver, which would allow for the block length to exceed the typical maximum of 1,320 feet. The proposed zoning map amendment would rezone the property from AG agricultural to LI limited industrial, which is in line with the growth plan and also similar to the surrounding zoning districts in this area. Also included with this application is a proximity agreement by which the developer acknowledges the property's proximity to the airport and sewage lagoons and the potential for noise and odor from these existing facilities. Staff finds the proposed annexation, subdivision, and zoning map amendment comply with all applicable standards and review criteria as outlined within the 2 staff reports within your meeting packet here. The Planning Commission reviewed these 2 items on May 4th and recommends approval. And as I noted at the beginning here, we have 2 separate recommended motions for the 2 separate items. Item 38C, again, is the annexation. That's that top one. 38D is the subdivision zone change on the bottom.
Anyone present wishes to speak to this annexation and zone change? Anybody wishing to speak?
Hi, I'm Paul Hyde with the developer, Hyde Development. We're excited to be here. We've been working on this project for almost a year now. And at this point, we're ready to get started on our first building, the first of 4 buildings that will deliver over 630,000 square feet of new state-of-the-art industrial space to the Fargo market, over 250 new jobs, and over $50 million in new tax base. So we're eager to get going, and we're grateful for all the staff time and Aaron's guidance and Don Kress's guidance through the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks for working with the system as well. Do I have a motion?
I'll make both motions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Mr. Gehrig, second? Okay.
Yeah,
Discussion?
I have a question.
Commissioner Gehrig.
With this new, now being part of Fargo, and there's a road there, are we gonna have sidewalks, streetlights, all those type of things added to this area?
I might defer to city engineer on that, but yeah, it would be city infrastructure, so same standards as any other.
And they're not there currently, so you're gonna be special assessed, you aware of that? Okay, I just wanna make sure that the applicant is.
So currently there is a rural road there and it is paved.
Okay.
So it is working just fine right now. And so you are correct. In the future, when it's time to replace it, then we will be replacing it with an urbanized road.
Okay, because, I think it was DigiKey or whoever else was up in that area and they got assessed $1 million or whatever it was. Just want to make sure you guys are aware that's going to happen at some point. So if they're aware, then I have no problem with it.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item E, text amendment to amend section 20.042 and repeal section 20.003 of the Fargo Municipal Code relating to the prohibition of firearm and ammunition sales as a non-farm commercial use or as a home occupation. First reading of the ordinance, explained by Aaron.
Yep. Thank you. So as you just mentioned, 38E is a proposed text amendment to the Land Development Code, again relating to the prohibition of firearms and ammunition sales as a home occupation, as well as a non-farm commercial use. This item is in follow-up to direction from the City Commission on May 17th to bring this ordinance into compliance with state law. This proposed amendment was actually first heard by the City Commission about a year ago on June 15th of 2020, at which the City Commission voted to table discussion until additional neighborhood input could be gathered and a more comprehensive review of the home occupations could be undertaken. However, as was discussed by the City Attorney and City Commission on about a month ago on May 17th, House Bill 1248 was signed into law and will take effect on August 1st of 2021. This statute restricts municipalities from enacting a zoning ordinance relating to firearms and ammunition that is more restrictive than state law. It also voids any such existing ordinances, including existing limitations on firearm and ammunition sales within the current Land Development Code. So as a result, the proposed LDC text amendment is essentially a housekeeping edit at this point, intended to remove what will become defunct language within the LDC. So Eric, I don't know if you want to add anything there. I know you provided a description a couple weeks ago. But.
No, I don't have anything to add. That very good presentation.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this suggested motion?
Hi, my name is Peter McDonald. I'm in outstanding approval of this. I wish you guys would represent us instead of us having to go to the state and change the law, but it took 6 years to do it, so I hope you vote for it. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll move suggested.
Eric moved. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Strand with the second.
With regrets.
Further discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a
Mr.
statement.
Weston.
I'm going to vote for this only because if we don't, we're out of compliance with state law. But it is such an egregious infringement on local control. It just is really irritating to me. And this, when you look at the other prohibited uses in home occupation, there's another one there that has a constitutional protection to it. So, I regretfully have to vote for this.
Commissioner Pipcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm not going to support it now, and I'll totally agree with Commissioner Preston. The other example is adult entertainment. There's a First Amendment, obviously, right to free speech, but you can't have an adult entertainment in certain zones of our city, and we've decided that. So I believe if we wanted to, we could challenge this and we would succeed. Because what this does, this allows a retail gun store in your neighborhood. So your next door neighbor could open up a retail gun store. That's ridiculous. I totally support individual sales of guns. That's none of our business. But to open a retail gun store in a neighborhood is preposterous. And so I think we should, that's just my opinion. I think if we appealed it, we would win. But what's before us, I will not vote for it. Thank you.
Can I, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Preston.
So Eric, what would be the implications of us not passing this?
Well, if you didn't pass it, it would stay on the books. And if the city were to, let's just say they attempted to enforce it, if the city never enforced it, then it wouldn't be an issue necessarily. But if the city attempted to enforce it, someone, Mr. McDonald, for an example, just was speaking, could bring a lawsuit challenging, the superiority of the state statute versus the city's ordinance, and a court of law would determine the outcome. As the 1248 provides, the person suing the city, if they were successful, would be able to, get damages against the city for the cost of that litigation.
And excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the issue of local control or local decision-making probably wouldn't carry much water in that kind of situation, or would it?
Well, there's some arguments that you can make regarding home rule and so forth. I guess a judge would have to decide those things. I mean, we're dealing with that from time to time and have been for a long time. But it's never really come to a head in North Dakota that I know of. I mean, certainly home rule issues have been litigated at the North Dakota Supreme Court level, but not in this kind of context, I don't think.
But Eric, in honesty, you have to be a legislative person, pick this particular issue we had in our community and designed a law to go exactly against it.
Right.
Would be somewhat hard on our part to defend in a sense, because in theory, at least, he followed state guidelines for this. Is that correct? His idea is state overwhelms home charter and fixes the glitch we had, so.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Pipcorn.
I'm not a great legal mind like our city attorney, but I will say we could say, let's go to court. I believe we'll win. And it might be above the state level. We can say the Constitution says this, we believe we can have this. So I think it's our decision as a group. Do we want to go, do we want to do that or not? That's the thing. But the ironic thing is we literally have the example of it successfully being defended with the next item on the next section with adult bookstores. We already limit that in Fargo. That is already happening. So I'm telling you, I believe we'd win. So that's just me. If you guys are up for it, I'm up for it. I'd say let's go, because I'm tired of the legislature, some legislator in Bowman, North Dakota, telling us how to do zoning in Fargo, North Dakota. What the hell? What's that? How about you being in charge of Bowman and we'll be in charge of Fargo? That's what I like. All right, that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Preston.
So I am going to actually reverse my comments from earlier and actually go along with voting against this. The issue for me here is local control. And if we could challenge that somehow successfully, and it goes way beyond this issue. I mean, there's numerous issues where the state has overridden local control. So this might be the test case.
Mr. Garrick.
Local control is not a legal defense or argument. It's a theory that we have in North Dakota that allows us to do what we want, and they should stay out of it. Ben Koppelman is the one who brought this forward. He represents people in Fargo and West Fargo. So it's not someone in some faraway land. It's someone who represents us here. All that was changed in this law was the fact they put in the LDC, Land Development Code, into this. We were already on the verge of going against the existing law, in my opinion. And then they clarified it and added in the LDC to it. It wasn't a dramatic change. It was a very simple change. If we don't pass this, we will get challenged. We will lose. It'll cost hundreds of thousands of dollars probably, and it's going to be a loss. So look, I get it. Some people don't like guns. That's fine. We're not debating that right now. What we're debating is, are we in fact going against state law? Right now, yes, we are. Lick your wounds. You didn't win this one. You buck up for the next one. But let's not spend a bunch of money when we know we'll lose in the court.
Mr. Strand.
I move that we defer this until after we have received a report back from our legal team advising us whether it's viable to challenge the state law, whether it would be, how costly it would be, and how likely or not we'd be at succeeding.
Are you amending my motion?
I'm moving that we delay it and defer it, which is a totally different motion. It's a higher precedence too.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Eric, how is that? Yeah, I have a motion. I got another motion. Is it an amendment, or how do we get a motion on top of a motion?
Yeah, I think this is a kind of the equivalent of a table.
It is same table, right? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say too, we have time for this. The implementation date isn't until when?
August 1st.
Yeah,
August.
we've got time.
Any other discussion on the motion to do a study and bring it back?
Yeah,
Mr. Strand?
This might be something we might need to discuss in executive session too, if, but as a possibility.
Commissioner Pepcorn, I was really proud of your vote against this the last time it came before the commission. I completely agreed with you, how egregious this is to have this type of a policy pushed down our throat from state legislators who don't live here. And yet we work with each other. We're all in the same state. It wasn't our voice that brought this. So I would say anything we can do to protect the interests of the neighborhoods and the people in their homes, this is what we have in place. There are several other policies that we maybe could look at, but at least find out whether or not, the state is constantly passing laws that, for example, test abortion and spend millions of dollars questioning constitutionalities and legalities of other policies. So I don't know that we're out of line standing for what we believe here in Fargo, for what we sincerely believe would make for the best community. And I hope that we find out we have a way forward where we can have that voice and not just be squelched.
Any other discussions? Local control is always an issue in the community, and who represents better than the people that are voted in to do that? Roll call vote.
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye. So that stands as the motion, right? We don't vote on the other one. Okay, move on to F, Renaissance Zone Project for new construction project at 300 Main Avenue. Nicole Crutchfield to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Commissioner Pepcorn had asked me to do, I'm going to change up my presentation a little bit because I'm going to try something new with my Renaissance Zone presentation. First of all, we do have the applicant here, Mr. Kronofsky, but just a little 101 for the public on what Renaissance zones are and the process. I won't do this every time, but just to highlight a little bit. We have different types of projects. This is a new construction project. There's a minimum threshold that needs to be invested in. And since the Renaissance Zone, since we did our 2019 study, every 5 years we have to do an update. There's been, since the initial inception of the legislation, there's been 81 projects, both new construction and rehab. And the assessed value in 99 was approximately 197 million, and today, or in 2019, it was 546 million. And so you just kind of show in terms of the impact of supporting or that deferral in that program as we are in partnership with our developers. In this particular project, we have an application to remove the existing gateway mall and where the frying pan is. The frying pan is actually, if anybody's afraid they're going to lose the frying pan, it's moving to the building to the north, so it's not going away. And but instead, the applicants want to build a 7-story building, 188,000 square feet, and this would include underground parking and main floor parking, commercial and condominiums. The applicant will invest $31 million, which obviously exceeds the minimum threshold. This is part of my experiment. I want to do a little bit more introduction on the actual math as part of it, and thanks to James and the assessor's office to helping me dissect the math. But the value of the taxes today is $45,000, and the benefit that the recipient will receive over the 5-year period is $2 million. And what starts to get confusing is if you break out the land value versus the building value, and the building tax revenue that the city receives is approximately $27,000 a year, and that basically gets zeroed out, and over the next 5 years, once the building is completed. So in this project in 2023 is when it's estimated to be protected or completed, and then from that point on, over a period of 6 years or 5 years, it's basically the owner will continue to build pay the property taxes of the land, but at year 6, the full value comes back on at $452,000 a year based on that $31 million investment. So that's kind of a quick summary of the math. And Commissioner Pipcorn, I'm not sure if that's gets to the point you're trying to get to. And maybe a little bit more about the project itself. We do believe this is in keeping with both our downtown and focus plan and the Renaissance Zone project itself. We believe this will add a new level of retail at the ground floor. We have a 100-point scale, and this application actually received 98 points in one of our higher ranking projects. And like I said, the applicant is here. Here's some examples of the renderings, and we'd be glad to answer any questions.
Is there anyone who wants to speak to this project? Anybody wants to speak to it? If not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make, and I'll second it. And if it's okay, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. First of all, Nicole, thank you very much. The thing that I love about the Renaissance Zone was back 25 years ago, the property values in the downtown were going the other way. They were going down. And so the Renaissance Zone, there's multiple people that deserve credit for that, mostly in the legislature, fortunately, but it's been so successful. And the best part of it is it's 5 years. It's limited. And then after that, that goes on the tax rolls forever. And so it's been a phenomenally successful. We're so fortunate to have that in Fargo. We've obviously had lots of people. Actually, I had a Renaissance Zone project a long time ago. And the other thing is, once you do it on a building, you can't do it again. It's a one-time program. So it's just great. And thank you, Nicole. That was excellent to have the additional facts. That's a key thing. Thank you.
Mr. Garrett.
Are there incentives being asked for this building?
I would ask for Jim or the applicant if you have other. Do you want to go to the microphone?
I'm sorry, Commissioner Garrick, I didn't hear.
I was wondering if you guys are going to apply for additional incentives other than the Renaissance Zone.
We will not, no.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Gary.
No.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item G, application filed by Standard Industries for a 5-year property tax exemption for project located at 5650 13th Avenue North, where the applicants will use it in an operation of metal fabrication and providing a variety of stainless steel, precision steel, and aluminum products. Jim Gilmore to explain.
This is an application for a 5-year property tax exemption. Standard Industries, if you look on the map, they're in the Northwest Industrial Park. On the right side, that smaller green box is their current location. I think they may have leased some space in the building next door. The proposed new building would be on the box on the left. They're proposing a 120,000 square foot building, estimated at $5.9 million. Currently, they're in a 36,000 square foot building, so they're almost tripling their amount of space that they'll have. They currently have 38 positions. In the first year, they'll add 12. By year 13, they would add an additional 14, and by the 5th year, they would add an additional 16, bringing the total up to, projected to be 80 jobs in 5 years. The wages, they have the first 12 in that first year. 7 of them would be between $20 and $28 an hour, and 5 would be between $28 and $35 an hour. I'd like to have the business owners come forward and tell us a little bit about their business and what they plan to do, and address maybe more specifically the wages, the benefits, and any concerns you have on safety. If you go up to the podium there.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Mr. Mayor and the commissioners for allowing us here tonight. And just to give you a brief overview of what Standard Industries is, we've been around, how many years, Robert, would you say?
Since 1948.
1948 here in Fargo. And we currently been growing about 95% of our business is outside the North Dakota area. We're doing a lot of a lot of mining equipment, flour containment equipment, sugar beet equipment, and also emphasis on stainless steel equipment and so forth. And we've been growing every year. Right now, we're out of room. We're landlocked, and so we need to grow. And one of our things is that we push for high quality employees, and to find employees right now are very, very tough. So we've been working hard at attracting people from other parts of the country, quality craftsmen and so forth. And it's been paying off. We've had to pay more money, but it makes us more competitive in the long run for doing projects and selling equipment outside the area.
Any questions? Mr. Gary.
First, thank you for growing in Fargo. Second, is this going to lower the cost of a steel roof? It's getting pretty expensive. That was a joke. Would you make this switch, or would you build this new building without the 5-year incentive?
It'd be tough to pay what we're going to be paying employees or what we want to do the project without the tax incentives in the first 5 years.
Okay, it would be tough. Would you make the change without the 5-year incentive?
Boy, it'd be hard to do it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen. I like the size you're expanding to. I'm glad you're handling flour as well. That's kind of difficult stuff to handle sometimes, so great work.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Well, I'll make the motion, but I wish we had more time, because obviously what I like is this is a homegrown business. It was started here. The story of how the business started is pretty cool. The other thing is the current owner started working there as a young man, and now he's taken over. So all those things, it's an awesome story because it's a local and they're growing. That's good for us, and they're exporting around the country. So we're very fortunate. I love that. I think unfortunately our meetings get a little bit long. Otherwise, I'd have them talk for a half hour because the story's awesome. But I think it's obviously, and it's a 5-year term, so I think that's very easy. So I fully support it. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gary?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then the chief's going to tell his story.
Thank you.
Call the meeting back to order.
Possible.
We're going to have a presentation of the Fargo Police Department 2020 and 2021, the annual and the mid-year report. Chief Dave Zablowski to explain.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Commission. I'm extremely excited to give you this brief preview of the annual/mid-year report. What our team really decided to do with our tenure being a short but very quick 8 months is try and focus on the many things that we have already accomplished or we have in process, while also memorializing the events and data from 2020, so you can kind of see how things and what you can expect going forward. First of all, really the cornerstone of our operation is our vision, mission, and value statement. It was very important to establishing our expectations and goals, and internally and externally, our level of accountability to each other in the community. And so as we start to brand that out, cue video, you'll see more things in the community with these very important messages. This vision, mission, and value was put together by an across-the-board group of department members. We've had really excellent cooperation and commitment from members of the department and our community as we start to transition the department in a more forward-thinking fashion. So what the new car looks like, there's one outside right now if anyone wants to take a peek after the meeting. But this is some of the work that was done in branding this vision, mission, and values. So thanks to the fleet team on all of that, and thanks to our city IT folks for putting that together. You'll be seeing those cars rolling out. Again, there's one out there this evening. as we start to transition our vehicles and, of course, brand in other areas internally and externally to the department. So let's see if I have control here. Okay, beautiful. Our training, our whole department, both civilian and sworn staff, received an 8-hour implicit bias training. This, again, is something forward-thinking in terms of 21st century policing, a direction that the department culturally is in the process of transitioning to. We're looking at a number of policy updates along those same lines as we move forward on those initiatives. One of the big things, and I can't quite see it with the icon down there, but our staffing schedule. So in order to make the best use of available staff, we, and with the support of the department members, went to a 10-hour shift schedule, which puts the most officers on the street when we need the most officers, not just the same number all day long. So that really has increased our capacity and our ability to get the job done and provide outstanding service to the community. From a technology and transparency perspective, right from the very beginning, we put another large group of individuals on the body-worn camera project. They did a ton of work that we talked about a couple of meetings ago that ultimately was successful in selecting a vendor, and we expect to have the body-worn cameras out by August of this year. And that will be great transparency for the community, accountability for all, and enhance operations quite a bit. Over the next 30 to 45 days, I'll be out in the community discussing body-worn camera Q&A and policy so that the community has a very good understanding and has the opportunity to participate and make suggestions relative to the policy. But I think the big piece is that the community understands things like when cameras are on, how they turn on, things of that nature. Most importantly tonight, one of the things that I did at the outset was really evaluations and overview of the department. The one-on-one meetings with staff, asking a lot of questions, observing and evaluating operations of the department. And so the big thing in terms of moving forward is the reorganization plan for the department, which is in the works with the Budget and Finance Committee now, but really entails bringing the department together as one large team instead of several siloed areas. And so I'm going to walk through what the reorganization plan does and why we did it, but essentially taking roles and responsibilities and placing them with the correct position, not the correct person, but the correct position. And we're gaining a lot of efficiencies in doing that, as well as bringing in some civilianization and a more data intelligence-led perspective to the work that we're doing. So just kind of going through this by area, the Office of the Chief, obviously myself, there's a newly created assistant chief position. So this person serves as the second in command. They also have oversight of the division commanders, and we'll go through that in a second. They're also the emergency management contact. They have risk management, grant, budget, and serve that very vital role and ensure that basically we are working as a team at all division levels. And we added in a payroll and procurement person. We found that a large amount of department personnel, sworn personnel, were tied up dealing with payroll and procurement issues that had nothing to do with either their subject matter expertise or really their role as law enforcement officers or supervisors. So taking that off the plate affords the people that are working the opportunity to do that which we really want them to do. The old Patrol Services Division is now renamed the Neighborhood Services Division because that's where they are. They're in your neighborhoods throughout Fargo, again, carrying out that vision, mission, and value. The 10-shift schedule allows for all of the overlapping shifts and staffing, and again, to increase that efficiency and capacity. And then we created the Specialized Services Unit on the upper right there, which oversees our community engagement team, who now has, and the school resource officers, who now has a dedicated supervisor. In addition, we created a civilian opportunity for a CSO, a current CSO, to take a lead position and provide supervision of those civilian personnel and freeing up a sergeant. Also in the Specialized Services Unit, we've taken all of those different things, motorcycles, which we recently brought back out of archive, our bicycles, SWAT, crowd management, canine, and emergency ordnance disposal, bomb team essentially, and put it under one supervisor so that it was better organized. We would ensure proper training was provided and better manage operations of those specialized services.
In our Criminal Investigations Division, we've done a number of things here as well, namely civilianizing the Intelligence and Analysis Unit. So currently we have detectives in there along with the crime analyst. Adding in more civilian crime analysts gives us a lot more transparency and IT capacity, both to do internal analysis in terms of what the department is successful at, looking at our data and identifying any issues, but also externally for the community when we talk about things such as use of force, traffic stop data, all the things that are of concern to our community. We're in a much better position to be able to accomplish that goal. And then those detective positions move over to where they're needed, the investigative side of the house, who's really been understaffed for a period of time and needs some additional help. Along with that, our Criminal Investigations Division staff conducted an analysis of their staffing needs and presented a proposal, which is also part of the Budget and Finance Review, to create a large number of permanent detective positions. Currently, our investigative staff has all of the positions are rotational in nature, and historically, after 3 to 5 years, they would rotate out and we would get someone new in these really important positions. I think everyone agrees that we owe it to our community as well as the development of our personnel that we need to have a certain amount of permanent positions who obtain and then retain that subject matter expertise to help us with our investigations and crime clearance, a very important piece when we talk about eliminating repeat victimization and identifying that small amount of folks in our community who are responsible for a large amount of crime. The Professional Standards Division is newly created. It did not exist before. And under that hub, again, that division commander is a lieutenant for the Professional Accountability Unit, in which all of the internal investigations and citizens' complaints are investigated and managed. So just putting a lieutenant there already increased the capacity twofold, but also a greater level of accountability on our use of force reviews. We've changed policy in terms of the speed with which those incidents are reviewed so that appropriate action can be taken if something is found to be out of policy or if we have something that was inappropriate. So we sped that up quite a bit, I think both to the satisfaction of not only myself, but the officers who want to know if something they've done is incorrect in some fashion, or for citizens who feel that they weren't treated properly or that unnecessary force was utilized. Along with that, we've married up the Training and Development Unit. So the Professional Accountability and Training and Development Unit are really interdependent, interrelated in terms of identifying department-wide issues, training deficiencies, patterns of behavior that we need to address. And then by having those under the same division, they've been very successful at identifying what's a training issue versus what is a conduct or behavior issue. I think allowing us to make better decisions about how we address that, not only more quickly, but more appropriately, so bad conduct goes away, training issues get addressed in a quicker fashion. And along with that, our 10-hour shift schedule provides us a common training day so basically we can train every week and identify not only skills that we need to work on, but a lot of the other pieces that we haven't been able to do historically. We conducted an analysis of our beat structure. Previously, we had a 4-district structure. The geography of those districts wasn't necessarily as efficient as it could be. We opted to go with a straight north and south geographic division in terms of those beats. Again, analyzing calls for service. And even though some of those areas look larger than others, the larger areas don't have as many calls or maybe don't have the population base. And so spreading out those beats from that perspective evens out the workload a little better. And then again, with the overlapping shifts, there are times where we often have several units in a particular area to include our downtown resource officers in that downtown area. The Fargo Police Academy, which last year was the very first class, extremely innovative program and one that we're very proud of, currently has a class in session that will complete August 6th and put us in a position to fill some of our existing vacancies. The creation of this academy not only saves the department money, but it really gives us, again, greater capacity and ability to train our officers. I think as the commission discussed earlier, as we want them trained in Fargo versus how
a state perspective may train them. We're a large municipality. We're very different than a lot of other areas of the state. And there are a lot of additional things above and beyond what North Dakota Post would require that we want our officers to know and that we want them to do. So that really puts us in the driver's seat from that perspective. We also get to know these folks from the get-go. So when it comes time to hire, we have great familiarity with their skills and commitment. Our crime data is going to be reported differently going forward. So again, we'll be able to get out to the community and explain this a little better. All of this information is on our website. But several years ago, the department went to an incident-based reporting system. And this was mandated by the FBI. As of this last January, every department had to do this. However, we weren't necessarily reporting this methodology to the public. So we are now pushing out the incident-based information on our website. And you'll see through April 30th in our mid-year report. And incident-based reporting is more robust than summary-based reporting, which will just talk about some of the major crimes and things of that nature. This will talk about arrests, adult, juvenile, and a myriad, basically all crimes, versus just a subset that you would have seen historically in the summary-based reporting. So that's out there for the public to consume. And we'll have more to, I guess, Q&A on that as we get out into the community and provide a little insight into what that data means. For an example, if you look at the category of aggravated assaults in the IBRS report, you'll see 127 aggravated assaults. Well, a shots fired or a shooting is an aggravated assault. But those are pretty important things in terms of how the community views its own safety. And without pulling that data out or de-aggregating it from the larger aggravated assault category, people really have no idea. So we directed at the beginning of the year that we start tracking these individually so that we can report out on them. So a shots fired incident is where someone fired a firearm, but no one was hit. If someone is struck by a firearm, a projectile from a firearm, that is a shooting. So just in terms of terminology. Through May 21st, we had 15 shots fired incidents. We have made arrests in 9 of those incidents, so a 60% clearance rate, which is pretty good for shots fired because a lot of times that comes in with little or no information. So I think we're doing a good job in terms of tracking that and using technology to also connect like offenses. We've got a memorandum of understanding with the ATF in terms of firearms ballistics, and that is helping us tremendously in starting to correlate cases. So this will be part of our regular reporting mechanism as well. This is more of an enhanced view of the data. And the same thing with the shootings. Through May 21st, we had five shooting incidents and 5 persons shot. We made arrests in 3 of those incidents, 60% clearance rate. So 2 of them are still being worked on. Of course, certainly after this report was put together, May 23rd, we had a homicide. So this data is through May 21st, and we'll continue to update and provide that enhanced view of crime data for our community. In terms of the Personal Accountability Unit, we'll also be taking a deeper dive into our use of force incidents and providing more context and information. Again, you can look at the report in detail. One thing I do want to point out that's new is an analysis of use of force relative to calls for service and arrests. Oftentimes there is a large perception that an agency or police in general use force a lot. The data doesn't support that, which is good, but of course we need to continue to monitor that. So if you really look at our over 77,000 calls for service, we made physical arrests in 4,000 of those calls, or 5% of the calls. Our use of force compared to calls for service is 0.1%. Our use of force in terms of the 4,000 arrests is 1.9%, which is not a very high number. Again, diving a little bit deeper into the personnel complaints, the number of sustained complaints, what type of disciplinary outcomes occurred. And you'll note in this report, because of the previous process of disposing of personnel complaints, there's a lot of different dispositions listed. Those dispositions will be fewer going forward as we make our policy updates and kind of transition the professional accountability forward. Just an overview on calls for service and citations. Again, those citations include traffic and non-traffic. The traffic are only where citations were issued. Again, part of our data initiative will be collecting all of the data on all stops and other categories that the community is concerned about as well, so that we can provide that not only for accountability but for transparency. As mentioned earlier, our downtown resource officers are now down there 7 days a week during the times when we really need to have them staffed down there, and that's above and beyond the beat staffing that we have. And of course, our motorcycle officers, 2 gentlemen down there who graduated from the motorcycle course down in Sioux Falls. And we've had the bikes out on the road a couple of times now for events, and we'll have them out there for enforcement and community engagement as well. In fact, you can see them down at the community picnic this Wednesday evening, along with some of our other resources. In terms of criminal investigation data, this is more along the lines of what you may be used to seeing, a summary-based reporting mechanism where we talk about some of the larger violent crimes and how many were cleared. Same thing with property versus this look, which is the incident-based reporting mechanism. So because that's counting all the crimes that are reportable, you'll see larger numbers. That doesn't mean that there's a crime increase per se, but you can see that the numbers have increased slightly over the last 5 years in terms of total numbers. So again, to provide context, looking at 2019 to 2020, our persons crimes, the increase there was driven by a large increase in simple assaults. Simple assaults are things like misdemeanor batteries. Some of those are domestic violence related as well. So there was an increase there. That was the large reason that that number got larger. Our property crimes were driven largely by burglaries. We know that burglaries and thefts are an issue that we're constantly dealing with and are working on. We had a large increase 2020 over 2019. And I think, absent any questions, that's the report overview. Again, there's a lot more detail in the report itself. It will be available to the public online following the meeting this evening. Again, I just want to express my how proud I am in terms of our department and the manner with which we have navigated significant change. We are certainly far from done. We are working on this reorganization plan and making sure that we have the right persons in the right roles. And we'll be continuing to work very intentionally with our community members and addressing their concerns as well. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. Are you almost a year here almost going on it?
8 months.
8 months. It probably feels like 5 years.
It feels like 10. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
I'm just curious, Chief, when you drill down into the use of force topic, I'm curious, when you get there and you see who those folks are, who are they? Is it behavioral health, mental health, addictions? Is that the population that is the most demanding physically and management-wise, or who are they?
I think you're going to find that when we drill down. I can tell you that in Beloit, that's what we found. But we have to put the system in place to track that, and that didn't exist. So part of our reorg and budgetary issues are a software program that allows us to do that kind of analysis. But when we looked at it in Beloit, that's exactly what we found, that a large amount of them had to do with people who were either mentally ill or substance abuse, because obviously they're not able to make better decisions. Then, of course, you have a smaller percentage who are just, I don't want to be arrested, criminal in nature in terms, and will try and either elude or escape the arrest.
If I might, Mayor, so this is, I look forward to seeing that information and then challenging the commission and the city to try reduce that number in other ways. If we can affect our public and our community and make people safer and healthier and have less interaction with police and less requirement of arresting our way out of addiction. Get people help first. So that information will be really valuable to us. I look forward to it.
Yeah, and we want to have proactive interaction.
Absolutely.
Right?
Commissioner Pipcorn.
So I just, on page 16, there's a pie chart where it says personnel complaint disciplinary actions, and then there's a bunch of short letters. If you could tell us what the letters mean, where it says EBD, PIC, LOC, if you could translate those for
Let's go
the,
back to,
at page 16 is what it's on. It's on the lower.
unfortunately, I don't have page numbers on this one, so I think I know.
Right
This
there.
one right here?
Yes, and if the pie chart to the right there, where there's abbreviations for the different, if you, I don't even know if you know what, if you could translate those to us, I would appreciate that.
Sure. So let me read this a little better. Okay. EBD, education-based discipline, that's something that was previously in place. I would surmise that some type of, I guess I would equate that closer to maybe training, some type of training. I don't know what exactly that entailed, because this is 2020 data. The PIC would be an performance improvement contract, meaning that an employee was placed on some type of performance improvement with a specific plan that should be overseen by HR, and then if successfully completed, would avoid other disciplinary measures perhaps, again, geared towards changing that behavior or maybe some competency deficiencies that an individual had. LOC, letter of consultation. I would equate that perhaps to a written reprimand. But again, these are titles that they were in place previously. GT is Guardian Tracker, which was a software system that was used by frontline supervisors to document certain instances of either policy violations or other situations that they felt needed to be addressed. That will no longer be in place because under the new procedures, we will look at everything to make sure that we aren't missing information, because sometimes that's what happens when you have divergent systems and there isn't one overall system of accountability. LOR, letter of reprimand, which again I would attribute as like a written reprimand.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
That was the end of my initials that I didn't know what in the world they meant. So thank you for helping.
Commissioner Preston?
Yeah, just to follow up to Commissioner Strand's earlier question about use of force. So going forward, will you also be collecting racial data on the use of force?
Yeah, we'll be able to break it down in many ways. But to his point, that's an important factor that we do need to look at, because that does lead to other discussions. And the other piece of it is when you look at, maybe it's this slide. Maybe it's this one. When you look at the 61% that are physical, that is mostly nothing more than just compliance holds and things that are not dangerous or don't cause injury or things of that nature. And so that's a large amount of what the use of force situation is. And again, within those and some of those other ones, to be able to input folks that have either mental health or under alcohol or drug influence during the arrest, we'll be able to pull that out.
One other question, and this relates again to the use of force. And I think this question has been posed to you before. I don't know if you actually have the data, but the amount of training that happens with the police officers on de-escalation tactics.
Sure. So going backwards, we have a request in for that information. I, of course, don't know. I can tell you that going forwards, we are on deck to get the Integrated Communications Assessment and Tactics Training, which is a national de-escalation model. And that will become part of our department policy and culture as well. And that provides officers with more in-depth understanding, as well as a critical decision-making tool that they can work through in terms of de-escalating incidents. So that's something that doesn't exist right now in the department or even in the state. And so above and beyond basic use of force training, they don't have that additional information. So I think the officers will be very happy to receive those additional tools as well. We've been kind of stymied by COVID in terms of getting that group that does the training out, but they should be coming soon, and we'll get some folks trained, and then the whole department will be trained.
And just for the commissioners, we're changing software. So part of the question, John, on how to figure some of these things out, the chief has requested, I think it's a $30,000 change in the software that then gives the reporting the way you've requested and the way other people have requested as well. So we're upgrading some things to make reporting much easier. Great.
Absolutely, yes.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to move along here unless any other questions. Receive and file right now at this point.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Recommendation for selection of alternate B1 for segments 1 and 2 of the 32nd Avenue South Reconstruction Project.
I think we missed.
Nope,
Yeah,
missed
you skipped
39.
40.
Oh, I'm sorry. Receive and file ordinance relating to Wildlife Management Program Regulations action delayed at the 6/1/21 meeting. I think you wanted to start this out, Commissioner Gary.
Yeah, I'd just like to table it until we have a public discussion. I think we promised the community that we would have that, and it hasn't happened yet. So I'd like to have the opportunity for people who have,
Chief, you're kind of putting your papers away, but I want you to hear this, what he's asking.
if we can have an hour at some point in the next 2 weeks or even a month, to have people who have, not only people who have done the program, but people who are interested or people who don't like the program to voice their concerns and maybe make it better in some ways or make changes. But I would like the opportunity to have public input before.
Could we set a meeting next week and have Greg get it out so people would know?
Yeah, we've signed that out, so in the next, little more than 2 weeks before the next commission meeting, because there's notice and things that we have to consider, we'll have a public hearing so that everyone can provide input on it. So we had that, that's assigned out as of this morning to get that going, and then we'll be able to, I should be able to bring back a report to you at the next meeting with that input.
Okay, so I move to table it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, and Mr. Chair could add a comment. So I think we should, we talked to Dave Leaker, the head of the Park District, and I think they'd be willing, they originally managed the program, and I think that, I totally get if the police department doesn't have the time nor the desire or whatever the reason. I know the Park District sees the value in it. They have a lot of property that gets damaged, and so at least I would like to at least throw that into the hopper as a potential solution, and maybe in the meantime, we could at least talk to the Park District, because he basically said they'd be willing to resume the management of it, which they started originally. Thank you.
If we could reach out to them for that meeting.
Yeah, we're going to actually get the public input in terms of public safety concerns, which is one of the reasons, the main reason that we brought this forward. And then the other issue is if absent that, if the Parks District wants to implement or oversee the program. So we'll ask both of those questions and get that public input and bring it back.
Can I just add one thing that was awesome? So like 2 days after we voted on that, 2 beautiful deer walked right across my yard, and one of them took a big chomp out of one of my branches of my tree. They were just to spite me, just like, yeah. I'm convinced.
He picked you out.
I'm convinced that the word got out in the deer community, and so anyway, I just thought it was pretty funny. Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Garrick.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Preston.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Jeremy, now you're up. Sorry about that. The deer got ahead of you.
That's all right. It's a great lead-in. Hi, Mayor Commissioners. Jeremy Gordon, City Transportation Engineer. Here to talk about the 32nd Avenue project we have slated for next year. I'll give you a short slide presentation and I can answer any questions that you may have. So currently we have an environmental document going on right now from 32nd Street to the Red River, roughly 2 miles in length. And we're going to end up reconstructing the project in 2 phases. So you can see 4 years ago, we redid the interchange at I-29 and we came over to 32nd Street. The red and the green are the last 2 phases of this project to get to the river. So the red is what we plan on doing next year. Green is what we plan on doing in 3 years. So just a quick shout out to MetroCog. This is Long Range Transportation Plan in action. You can see the projects highlighted, and the one circled in red is what we're talking about tonight. So a little bit of background. We first started looking at this corridor way back in 2006. We went from 25th Street all the way to Cheyenne Street in West Fargo. We've, between us and West Fargo, we've completed a number of street reconstruction jobs along this corridor. We applied for federal aid a couple years back, and we were programmed for federal aid funds in the year 2022 and 2024. We hired Apex Engineering about a year ago to do the environmental doc and the design on this. And with your decision tonight on the design, we will we'll get approval from North Dakota DOT and Federal Highway, and we'll move to final design. So currently, I can get right into the issues out there. if any of you have driven it recently, the pavement's in really poor shape. Street department goes out there quite a bit, potholes, overlays, etc. I thought Mark used to tell me that he was watching the Twins win the first World Series when they were finishing the paving on the stretch, but I guess we built this a year or two later. So the pavement's in very poor condition. The storm sewer system is way undersized. This is probably our worst arterial road for street flooding when we have storms. Some of the pedestrian facilities are in fair to poor condition, and some locations we're not meeting ADA standards. The water and sewer are aging and need work. Some of the turn lanes are pretty short. They based it on traffic volumes in the late 80s and not today's. And then left turning at signalized intersection can be difficult at times. So what are we going to do? We're going to replace the pavement. We're going to improve the bike trail and sidewalk, and for sure the places where you cross the street to meet ADA guidelines. We're going to rehab the sewer main. We're going to replace the water main and hydrants. We're going to add a second storm sewer pipe to get us to the river to hopefully remove the street flooding. We're going to complete a safety improvement at 27th Street. That's where Oak Grove Elementary is. We're going to prohibit left turns from coming off the side street. We're going to replace the streetlights, traffic signals, and we're going to evaluate the existing median and boulevard trees and keep as many as we can. So in front of you tonight, there's really three alternatives. The first alternative is to not build anything. And the second alternative is to build a 5-lane with a median. And then the third option is to build a 5-lane without a median. So here are the highlights of a raised median. Basically, what you have out there today is what the alternative is. The construction cost on the first stretch that I showed in red was $8.7 million, and the second segment is about $11.2 million. Alternative B1, which is the no median, it comes in a hair less in cost, $8.6 million for the first and $11 million for the second. So this, what I've shown here is the 5-lane without the median. It's actually a pretty straightforward project. The orange line and the purple line are sidewalks and bike trail. The gray is the pavement, and you can see just the striping. There's no median out here. You can see that some of the green shaded areas, that's where we're gonna have to get some easements from property owners. So this is the first block, or the first, I guess, third of it. The middle third of it, you can see Oak Grove Elementary. The red median in the middle is to prohibit left turns from coming out. Those are very dangerous turns. It's the T-bone crashes when you're trying to make a left out. And as you continue to 25th Street, we're improving the sight lines for the left turns. So this is the last slide here for the plan view. You can see 25th Street, and it goes to 22nd Street. Basically, this is about halfway to the river. So the decisions in front of you tonight are, do you concur with the project concepts, and which alternatives do you prefer? So staff and PUPIC have recommended approval of the items listed above. And the next steps are to make those decisions. We'll complete our final design by Thanksgiving, bids in February, and we'll be under construction next year. And then the second phase of it will be in 3 years.
Do you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions first. So
Okay.
Jeremy, my question for you is, so obviously 5 lanes, to me, that's like Main Avenue used to be 5 lanes, and it was a long span for people, pedestrians, or anybody to get across. Does medians help with pedestrian? I guess that's the question. Or is this a different type of pedestrian crossing? Do you know what I mean? Because to me, it seems like if you don't have a median, that's just a long span for anybody on a bike or walking to cross.
No, I understand what you're saying. And we used to time signals just to get to, well, before I started here, you could stand in the median as refuge. But standing in the median when you have 6 to 7 feet of cars zipping by on each side is not any type of refuge. So we time the signals to get fully across. So If we did provide a median on this, it would be very narrow. I think it'd be 2 to 3 feet. Because this is a very constricted corridor. We've got 100 feet of right of way, so we've got a small space to be able to do a lot of things.
Commissioner
So
Garrick?
I hear your point, and we do give as much time as we can.
Commissioner Garrick?
Yeah, for me, I mean, this road is super busy, tens of thousands of cars a day. I mean, this is not a walking area, right? Not like Maine or anything like that. I used to live in South Fargo, used to be on 32nd all the time. You're probably the only one that uses it today. But this is a very busy road, and if it were up to me alone, I would have no medians because I don't want anyone feeling safe standing out there, right? It's going to be bad. So that's the way I'm leaning. I'll go along with a half and half concept with what I think was what you're kind of offering. But if it's up to me, there'd be no medians because no one should be jutting across this road anywhere but crosswalks. It is super busy, super fast, and there's a lot of volume.
Commissioner Preston?
So has there been study put into how many pedestrians actually cross at these intersections and whether there's been any conflict between vehicle? I used to live down there and I used to cross this one all the time because we would walk over to, it's now at Family Fair, Sunmart back then. And whether you build it without the medians or not, people are going to cross. So you got to make it as safe as you can. So how much study went into the pedestrian safety issue?
Well, there is a traffic operations report completed for a project like this. It counts all the cars that we have, but it also counts pedestrians. I'd have to look. I don't have it at the top of my head. But usually our pedestrian counts are very low compared to the cars.
Mr. Chairman. So the other thing I would say is that when you're talking raised medians, are you talking with grass and trees, or are you talking those awful looking concrete things?
It would be the latter
Because
we're so tight.
That's terrible.
So I go ahead.
So, I think the difference between 32nd and University, and I'm trying to remember, is it 45th Street or is it the next street that has those awful looking concrete things? The difference is 32nd Avenue, at least with the trees and the median, hopefully would have some kind of traffic calming so that the 40 miles an hour, people are a little bit more careful. I would encourage more traffic calming kind of concepts incorporated into this instead of the opposite.
No, and I agree. So this project does have 2 segments. So the first segment is from 32nd Street to basically 22nd Street. That's where the traffic is higher. From 22nd to University, we're going to incorporate as many grass medians as we can because there's not as many turning movements happening down at that end of the corridor. And the other thing about the medians is if you drive around town, when you're at a signalized intersection, when you're making a left-hand turn, and I didn't really do a good job of highlighting this, is you're usually trying to see around the left turn that's in front of you. They're always kind of in your way. But in this design, if you can see to the left there, we're trying to offset the left turns so they're right straight in front, so your sight distance is much improved. And as we get over to 25th Street, you actually they're moved out of your way even more. So if you're a left turner if you're going west and you want to go south, you can actually see hundreds and hundreds of feet to make that left. You may or may not have seen it around town, but that's kind of why we don't have room for a median.
The left-hand turns are bad. Agree.
I'm going to move the suggested motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I guess to me, this is the definition of not pedestrian friendly. And there's a library, there's a hospital, there's apartments and houses right there. And I guess I would like to challenge the engineers to come back with some type of proposal to at least have some more pedestrian protection in there. Because right now that's a high-speed highway, and that's no place for pedestrians. And it's like, and maybe that's what this portion should be, but I don't know. I think we've got to try to improve that, and now's the time to do it. Thank you.
Brenda?
So a couple of things I'd like to highlight is we do have only 100 feet of right-of-way. And so a couple of things that Jeremy's done is the lanes, back when this was originally built, you had to have 12-foot lanes. That's how wide they have to be. And so now what we're doing is we're taking and narrowing those lanes up, which I think provides some calming also. And then what it's doing is right now, there's hardly any room in the boulevard for the sidewalk and any type of grassy space. And so there's a lot of sidewalks along this corridor that aren't even friendly in the boulevard. And so what we've been trying to do is make that boulevard sidewalk much more friendlier than what it is today. And so, so by doing a median, that's going to take away that boulevard, any type of green space or trees. And so we've been trying to figure out those pros and cons as we look at that. And, you know, by keeping not having a median in there also, I feel narrows up. You're not adding that extra 6 feet in there for someone to stand. Also, it gives that more time to cross. So I just think with narrowing those lanes too, we're also constricting that length.
So are you saying from one side to the other, sidewalk to sidewalk, it's a shorter distance?
Today then,
Today there's a median and the DOT's always use 12-foot driving lanes. So getting rid of the median and shrinking the driving lanes from 12 to 11, it is a shorter distance. If you can see in this drawing.
Because you guys always on Main, you sold us that if the distance was so long, it took longer for people to walk across the street.
Yep.
So now you're narrowing it up, so it's shorter distance to walk across the street, but the sidewalks are horrible, and you're fixing that.
That's true.
Right?
So if you can see in this drawing, you can see, it's hard to tell, but we are moving the curbs in probably 2 to 3 feet on each side. So it is getting narrower. But Commissioner Pepcorn, to your point, arterial roads like this are never a great place to cross. Even as adults, it's difficult.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, but my eyes glaze over when I get information like this, and I'm trying to visualize and really grasp what is the difference. As I hear it, I think you're talking about a $2 million difference, and it's a median or no median. Is that what it boils down to?
It's not that much money though.
Okay.
It's only a couple $100,000.
I thought it was 11 million down to 9 million.
The 2 phases.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you do the 2 phases, John, it's only 200,000 difference in the bids.
Yeah.
So that's, okay, that I need to, I'm not getting that. Here's my basic question. You're talking about going back to a part of town where we already built and developed it and put it in place, and we're already seeing examples and hearing examples of, well, we should have done this isn't adequate, this isn't enough, this isn't appropriate for the growth of the city that's unfolded. How likely are we down the road to have people look back at our decisions today and say they were really short-sighted? And how proactive can we be to make sure that the longest term, most viable decisions for the future, and we're not rebuilding it in another 20 years or so? And I'm not sure, but you know, I'm just curious, what's the future going to look like, and how will they look back at what we're doing now?
Well, the one thing that we did make an error 30 years ago when we built this is the left turns. You having to see around the car in front of you, and not getting them out of the way. That's a big safety improvement at the intersections. And then the turn lanes today are very short. We're lengthening them out. And then this intersection right here in particular, I've myself done a traffic count here over a decade ago, and it's those left turns trying to make an unprotected cross. It was very difficult, and this is an elementary school. So I think we're making some good improvements, but section line arterial roads are difficult to really make that friendly when you're not in the downtown area. We do it, we can, but it's still a highly traveled, a wider section of the street.
32nd is really arterial all the way across the city, so it takes a lot of heavy traffic going east-west, or east-west, basically. Commissioner Preston.
So I understand that it's really tough to retrofit anything here, but to go to Commissioner Strand's comment, we don't want to make it worse. And granted, I understand some of the improvements you're trying to make, but by making it worse, I mean making it less pedestrian friendly. Because even though you may not see a whole lot of pedestrians crossing this right now, I mean, that's the intent, is to try to get people to walk to get their gallon of milk or whatever. The other side of it, and setting aside even the more important safety issues, is the aesthetic issues. University is just one concrete tunnel, and it's ugly until you get down to past 32nd, where you have the median, and then it's beautiful down there. So I still have to argue for the grass and the trees.
Mr. Gary.
I used to live on 44th Avenue South, kind of by Tim there. And I would have to go from 44th Avenue, and I'd travel north up to 32nd Avenue and then over to Interstate, so I go to the airport every day to go to work, right? It took me longer to drive from 44th Avenue to 32nd Avenue north or south than it did me to take me all the way up to 19th Avenue North and over to the airport, okay? It took me longer in that little stretch that I had because of the traffic on 32nd Avenue. If you try to make 32nd Avenue walkable and you shrink it and you make it, slower, you're going to have a riot in here. This is how people get to work every day. So if I have a kid and I have to go to Oak Grove Lutheran School here, and I have to get my kid there from 32nd Avenue, get back in there, then turn left back out, and you're going to slow that process down, they're going to burn this place to the ground if we try to make it slower. This is an arterial. This is not about walkability. This is not downtown. People want to get to work every day. And if we try to slow this down, people are going to go nuts. So I think we need to change our mindset. Not everything is downtown. People in South Fargo need to get to North Fargo and vice versa. There's a time and a place for walkability, but this is not it. Trust me, this is not it.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you. I know these are apples and oranges, and Commissioner Pepcorn alluded to it, but we had a really similar discussion, and they're not the same, about Main Avenue and whether to make it up to 5 or 6 lanes from the 4 lanes or so it was, and the implications of that. And knowing that the public's desire, we sensed, was to make it more user, pedestrian, walkable, friendly, bicycle friendly, our engineering teams came up with some really brilliant solutions, including roundabouts. So you don't have traffic blocking, stopping and backing up. The roundabouts keep the traffic flowing, which works really well. You came up with another alternative route where you go up under the bridge and over up on First Avenue North to diminish. Have we looked at, for this corridor, doing that same mindset? Like, say we decided it was our value to make it pedestrian, walkable, bicycle friendly. Have we really have we adequately explored those options and see what it would take and what mix of engineering would result in walkable, pedestrian friendly corridor?
I would say the traffic operations study really dictates a lot of what we build. We're at the volumes 15 to 20,000 cars a day on the eastern end and 20 to 25 on this end. The size roundabout that you'd have to put in wouldn't fit in these intersections. For sure 25th Street and anything west. As you get from 25th Street to University, the volumes do go down. And we could certainly look at those in the future. I'm thinking 18th Street might be a possibility, but those encompass.
But Jeremy, I mean, I think what you need to look at is look at downtown Maine and how your businesses are on each side. 32nd Avenue does not have that. The businesses designed on 32nd Avenue are automobile. Culverts is there, Sunmart is there. You're going to drive your car in. All the shopping centers south of there are all drive-in. They're all drive right to the business and you do your business. It's not designed as a walkable neighborhood. It's designed as you're busy, you go up and down 32nd. The hospital's there, people draw in. There's very few people that walk up and down this street. Now you're going to make it more walkable going east-west, but north-south it isn't. And the business model is totally different than Maine, John. It's not the same. It's not anything like Main Avenue. So when you're on 32nd Avenue, to Commissioner Garrick's comment, it's east-west, people go. They need to have safer left-hand turn. Oak Grove is a problem right there. It has been a problem. It needs to be protected. Otherwise, I can scoot straight across across there, and you see plenty of people doing that, trying to get T-boned, because that's what will happen. But if you design this the way you've done it, you've short and brought it narrow, made it a better road, that's what it needs. Right now, it's terrible, just rare. It's got bumps all over, you bounce up and down, traffic moves through that area. I think we have to get careful about what neighborhood we're talking about. Nicole, you just stood up and talked a little bit to Brenda, but I think that's part of the issue. What is the plan for that area, and what do we presently have? It's not Main Avenue. It is not the same type of scenario at all.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Commissioner Peppercorn.
it is Main Avenue, and if we changed it, it would change.
It's not what's there, Dave. It's what's there right now. Look at your businesses that are there right now. They're not built on the business of walkable people walking in and out of the businesses. They all drive into those places.
Mr. Chair, I don't think you know who you're talking to, because I was against Main Avenue changing from 5 lanes to 3 lanes, and I was wrong. And I'm telling you, if we changed it here, it would change.
I disagree.
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Mr.
say
Preston.
something. Yes, I agree. This, the orientation of the businesses to the street are very different than downtown, than Main Street or Main Avenue. But I'm still going to argue for traffic calming. And yes, I understand the lanes becoming more narrow will help that. But anytime you take out grass and trees or whatever, medians, it looks like a racetrack, and that's how people are going to act on it with their cars. So, I can't support taking out the medians.
So, Mr. Chair, just one more thing. So I want you to look at the pictures, and what do you see? Giant slabs of flat parking lots, just giant. And you know what would happen if we changed? They would all fill up with buildings. Think of that.
They're already built. Anyway, roll call vote.
Excuse me, what's the motion again, please?
It's a suggested motion, so if you go back one, that's where the medians will be. Otherwise, there will not be medians.
Can I ask one more question, Mayor?
Mr. Strand.
Help me understand the funding of this, and is this an urgent priority? Like, do we have federal or state funding that says you have to act now, or you lose the money, or is this entirely locally funded and special assessed, or?
No, this is federal aid with.
This is a
local
federal aid
funds.
program, and is there a window of time to act on that?
We really need plans to be done by Thanksgiving.
Okay.
I mean, we don't have to act tonight, but we should act within a month. So there's not a lot, there's not a lot of time. So, in front of you is, staff is basically asking, what 5-lane facility do you want us to reconstruct? We've done the traffic analysis, and the analysis says, what I'm hearing is a 3-lane section is too small to handle this traffic. We're trying to build the narrowest 5-lane section that we can to provide a grass boulevard to replant any trees that we have to remove as part of the project. I hear your point loud and clear about greening it up and making it as nice as you can. From 22nd Street over, there will be a grass median in a number of locations. So this, we need to bid it out next year. I think we've done our homework as staff, as this is the best options for us to proceed. But I'm certainly open to ideas that can enhance the design. We're by no means approving the actual every detail of every last design. We can still discuss this in the next couple months to include things in the final design that'll work.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I'm not clear exactly what the motion is. Which alternative? Are we talking flush? It looks like flush medians.
Yes.
Is that the concrete medians?
That is basically it's a 5-lane roadway without any median.
Without any. Okay.
In this stretch, I should apologize. In this stretch, the second stretch is where there's a lot more room for us to put a median, a grass and tree median in, working our way east. So it is a hybrid, but from 22nd west, the only median is really at Oak Grove.
From 25th over to University, you would have the median with trees. What he's going to have from University out to I-29 is you're going to have more boulevards with trees and grass than we presently have, and you're going to make the sidewalks better. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the enhancing they're trying to get to slow down the traffic. Any other discussion? Mr. Strand?
Have we engaged the neighborhoods to know how the people down there feel?
We did hold a public meeting last summer. I think it was either July or August, and we had very poor attendance. But we did have one. It was outside, COVID friendly, at Row Farm. Typically on these arterial streets like this, we get very little attendance.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote?
Gary,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
No.
Strand,
No.
Preston,
No.
Mahoney.
Yes. So we're gonna give away the millions of dollars? What are we gonna do? You just gave up on federal money.
Mayor?
You're gonna Strand.
I would put this on our next agenda and just brainstorm with us to see if there are any alternatives or any cost-saving measures or any pedestrian enhancements that we could incorporate into the process while we don't lose the monies and protect them. But I agree with Commissioner Preston and Commissioner Pepcorn that if we can make it more people-friendly, let's plan that now. If this is the time to do that. And if you can't come up with ideas, and we don't have any options, and then we'll know there weren't any options.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a suggestion as well. Perhaps if there was some pictures, some drawings that would show us more clearly what this median would not look like, or would look like with it, or the street would look like with the median and without, and the narrowness of the lanes, just to get a sense of, so where would the trees come in, and if we could get a better sense.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. We can see what our consultant can put together for us.
And Mayor?
Perhaps like Main Avenue, where you do a flyover to show them. Remember when you did that?
Oh, that's pretty fancy stuff. We can't get that done in 2 weeks.
Commissioner Strand.
And if possible, maybe we reach out to the public. If there's a way to get some fast feedback from people, survey the people in the region for suggestions. The more people engagement we have, the better.
John, I'm not sure you're gonna get much. These are most corporates. You'll take a look, drive 30 seconds, see what you have there. You have Innovis Hospital, which is there, your Essentia Health, basically, and you have a lot of these box shutters. So,
But there's people who live on both sides that's their neighborhood. And if they are choosing to walk across the street or however they transport themselves, I want to know what they want.
so you come back in 2 weeks with a discussion?
Sure, sounds good.
Is that enough time, or do you need 4 weeks?
No, we can come back 2 weeks. That's no problem.
Applications for property tax exemptions for improvements made on buildings. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Recommendations for appointments and reappointments to the following boards or commissions: Special Assessment Commission and Planning Commission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Receive and file ordinance relating to classification, ordinance violations, of minor possession and consumption of alcohol. Commissioner Pepcorn pulled this one, or do you want to start with it, Dave, and then Eric Johnson ready to respond?
I would love to start, and Eric can respond, Mr. Chair. So what I'm doing, we're getting mixed messages. Now the legislature is saying they're reducing the fine level for minors consuming alcohol. And I cannot believe that. It's like the exact opposite message that we should be sending. And I think it's kind of ironic, because we were just talking about this earlier. We have a legislature telling us what to do in Fargo. And I just, I'm not really convinced that they always have their, the perspective that we do. And once again, it's local representation. And so I think it's just unbelievably bad that the legislature, the message they're sending is minors consuming alcohol is no longer an issue. That's just, it's outrageous. And the governor signed it. Can you believe that? I would love to have them here to answer that one. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Eric, John?
Yes, so at the podium here is my Assistant City Attorney, William Wisher, but I'll take a shot at this. This is an example of what we dealt with on the traffic fines case, where there's a limitation on what offenses, we can't impose fines that are greater than what the city has for an offense. So that one has been litigated. And so that's where we're in compliance. So, this discussion about preemption and local control and that is, an active discussion throughout the country. And, Commissioner Garrick made reference to it. In some ways, it's an argument regarding good politics and good government, and there are some legal arguments. But this one in particular probably is more of a political argument as to what's.
What was the reason they decreased the fine? There must have been a rationale behind it. Did you just research it?
I'm not sure what the rationale is, but just to make sure everyone's on the same page with what it was reduced to, a Class B misdemeanor, the punishment is a $1,500 fine or 30 days in jail. That's the maximum for each of those. It was moved down to an infraction, which just means it's a $1,000 fine is the maximum. That would be at the discretion of the court. If it's anything like marijuana and paraphernalia, which also followed the same path of being reduced from a Class B misdemeanor to an infraction, the fine remained the same. In marijuana and paraphernalia, it remained at $400. So I would anticipate that the fines will remain the same.
Well, is it an attempt to get people out of jail? Is that part of the issue? Is they did want them going into jail?
It's a possibility. If it is a Class B misdemeanor, I would say if you get 3 or more offenses for a minor in possession of alcohol, there's a possibility of jail. I would say in my 3 years of prosecution, it was very, very rare that someone was sentenced to jail for a minor in possession of alcohol, but it would be a possibility. This is essentially taking that option off the table.
Chief Zablowski, was this something the law officers brought forward, or who brought this forward as a change?
The reduction in the fine? That came from the legislature, not from the law enforcement. We wouldn't generally support it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask.
Mr. Preston.
So you gave the correlation of marijuana possession. Is there differentiation between a minor? So I suppose this would be more in relationship to marijuana, medical marijuana. A minor in possession of marijuana, is that any different than an adult in possession? But
currently, there is. If it's under a certain age, it's a Class B misdemeanor for marijuana. It's also a Class B misdemeanor if you have over a certain amount. But the most common one we see is they have a small amount of marijuana. It's an infraction. They have paraphernalia. It's an infraction. But I believe it's either 18 or 19 is the age where if you are in possession of marijuana, it is a Class B misdemeanor.
so then there's an argument for leaving this with a Class B as a Class B misdemeanor, but we don't have a choice. It doesn't sound like so.
That's correct. There is a law on the books after Mr. Johnson referenced the Salby case. It's 12.10105 and basically says the city can have a lesser punishment. They just can have a more severe penalty.
Mr. Garrick?
I'll move the suggested motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just, this is just stunning. So the legislature's message that they're sending us is, it's no big deal. They're reducing the punishment for minors consuming alcohol, and at the same time, we have high fines for the bars that, if they get fined if they serve a minor, correct? So I totally, this does not make sense to me at all. Maybe I'm missing something, but basically they're just weakening. So they're sending the message that minors consuming alcohol, that's just stunning. So the legislature, anyway, just it's very sad. It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue in North Dakota, let alone in Fargo. What are they doing? Thank you.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Garrick?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
No.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 2B, is it now? First reading of the following ordinance relating to public safety, morals, and welfare, criminal mischief, hate crime, harassment, hate crime, and simple assault, hate crime. Commissioner Gary, you wanted this brought up?
Yeah, I'm not going to relitigate. I just want to have my vote stay the same. So if it was on consent, it looked like we all agreed, and we obviously all don't. So that's why my opportunity to vote no.
Any other discussion? So Eric, we have a second reading coming in 2 weeks. If we vote again for today, is it passed or is it?
No, in 2 weeks.
Yes, okay. So our motion is just we have to do the motion now, or?
You're just waiving the actual reading today. That's what you're, I mean, really, that's what the motion is, to waive the requirement of reading it at length, each of these three ordinances.
Okay.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote?
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
No.
Garrick,
No.
Mahoney,
Aye. Item 7, ballot allocation for voting by mail. Commissioner Preston.
Yeah, this is follow-up to a conversation or discussion we had up here a couple months ago for approaching the county about doing voting by mail again this next city election. Rationale being the voter participation is much higher. It was much higher, at least last year, partially probably due to the fact that people were getting absentee ballot applications automatically. Did a little research. You can see the numbers there, indication it would probably cost us around $32,000. And the motion is, and I can make the motion if that's appropriate right now, to direct city administration to include $32,000 in the 2022 budget for the purpose of mailing out absentee ballot applications to the voters who are residents of the city of Fargo for the election in 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Steve Sprague. So the question on this was partially the cost. So there was some discussion with the county officials, and we were told actually the cost was a little bit different than what we're putting out here tonight. I just want the commissioners to be aware of that in case it comes up higher. So Steve, is this all it's going to cost us, or when we contract with the county, will there be some additional costs?
So we do not currently have a contract with the county. It's my understanding that the county administrator, Mr. Wilson, and Assistant City Administrator Mike Redlinger are working on a contract. Secondly, the costs that the county included, we're including the cost of mailing the ballot. And so that's why I think the discrepancy.
Oh, okay.
And I believe what Commissioner Preston is proposing is that we mail out a ballot application, or, you know, that the anybody that wanted to vote by mail then would mail that application in, and then the county would then process that through their normal process.
Mr. Chairman, if I could also clarify, the county is not willing to do it. So the suggestion was that the city do it. So in that contract would not be the county actually doing this. It would need to be us if we're going to do it.
There are other civic groups that do send out blanket applications to voters that currently are doing that, but there were just short of 60,000 people that voted in the last general election, and so Commissioner Preston's numbers appear to be pretty close, be accurate to mail out just that ballot request.
So the only request I have is let's just ask the county, I know where our numbers are for budget purposes, what they may charge us for the services we acquire in that.
Well, currently, in previous elections, the county has not passed any of the costs through to any of the political subs. So schools, any of the cities, park districts have not paid any cost. The county has paid the full cost of all elections.
For a city election next year, you're telling me we're not going to pay anything?
If we do the election with the county. If we have a separate election, then we would pay our own election costs.
Okay. Commissioner Garrick.
I'll suggest that if we do automatic mail-outs, that they're going to charge us. I don't think they eat that cost. I don't like this. There's no need for it. We have early voting for a week. We have multiple sites on the day of. We're opening ourselves up to more fraud. Anyone can get a hold of these things. Ballot mining is not a new thing. People do it all over the country. we're not a small city. We always talk about how North Dakota has all these small cities that this is how they do it. Well, we're not a city of 30 people where they can't open up a ballot, place to vote. We have multiple places to vote. We're not restricting, we're not at all restrictive in our voting. People, if they want to vote, take 10 minutes out of the week, go down to whatever place is close to you. And they're open 12 hours a day for a whole week. There's no need to shove these ballots down people's throats. You can still request them if you want them. No one stopped you from doing that, but we shouldn't be automatically just throwing ballots out to the public like that. I think it's misguided. I understand why you want it. You want to make it accessible to everybody, and that's a noble cause. But I think this is not the way to do it. Having more places available, having them open for longer, that's how you have it. I'm all for early voting, but I'm not all for just throwing out ballots and seeing which ones stick.
Commissioner Preston?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify, we're not throwing out ballots. We're throwing out applications for ballots. So let me just clarify that. Secondly, the fraud question and accusation comes up multiple times. If you're going to make that argument, then there should have been fraudulent charges that happened or charges for fraudulent behavior with our last election, and there wasn't. The last election, and I'm talking the primary, where voting by mail was the only way to vote. There were no charges for fraud through that process. So
Commissioner Pepco? I'm sorry.
It's not an issue.
So, Mr. Chair, it's vote integrity should concern all of us. That we should all be in favor of that. And I have the utmost confidence. Steve is our representative, the county system that they use. We have absentees, we have early voting, we have lots of polls. I think our current system, I'm very confident in it when you talk about vote security. So I'm very happy with our system. I don't believe this is necessary. And the other thing is absentees, all you have to do is fill out a form and send it in. That's all you do. So for us to send out, spend additional tax money for this is, I believe, unnecessary. Thank you.
Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. If I recall, Commissioner Preston, there was a rather substantial increase in voting participation in the June 2020 election. Yes, it was all mail voting, but it was also during a pandemic, but we know it works. I'm going to go back in time. Commissioner Preston used to be on the school board. I used to be on the school board. Our school district and our county have, at moments in time, not been on the same page about how to conduct elections. And the county went down a path, and they said it was the school's decision. It wasn't. To take voting out of schools and put them in churches. Put them in churches instead of schools. That's one question. And then they were never open. Even after our school board voted to bring them back to the schools, the county wouldn't let it happen. I'm going to suggest I'd rather have voting by mail than people voting in religious institutional spaces at the expense of being able to vote in a school. So I'm not always in agreement with how the county requires our elections to be run. And what I like about this approach is it takes away that whole discussion about whether I guess we're still voting in churches and not in schools, but at least it gives us the opportunity to step up more votes for more people. And if it doesn't work, in a few years, we could back it up in time and not do it again. But I'm all in favor of everything we can. What were there, 20,000 votes in the last election?
22.
So
21.
it's a matter of pennies per vote. If there's nothing more important than voting, I don't know what's more important than voting. Anything we can do to step up the participation of citizens voting, and there isn't fraud. That's a bogus argument. I'm sorry, I just don't know of anybody who's prevailed with that. I say it's worth a try.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make one
Mr.
more.
Preston.
So the county has gone through a number of changes where they have moved the polling places out of the churches now. But they're down to what, 3 sites? I think 3 or 4. 3 in the city, 4 in the county.
Yeah, you're testing me a little bit. I think there's one in West Fargo also.
Okay.
But the vote centers are set up so that if you let's say that you lived in Fargo and you worked in Castleton.
Yes.
And you wanted to vote in Castleton, you could vote on the city election in Castleton. So they had 6 vote centers at the last election.
But the issue becomes also that these are no longer neighborhood-based. So somebody who is transportation challenged, it's hard for them to get to a polling place because they're much more centralized. So that, along with, and granted, yes, we've got a lot of days that are for early voting, but we don't know what the impact is going to be on the lines. There may be longer lines. So there's a couple of things that are happening at the same time here, and we don't really know what this is going to look like.
Mr. Gary.
You want to vote absentee, vote absentee. There's nothing stopping you. We don't restrict it at all. You can do it for any reason that you don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. Fine. You send an email, they send it to you, you fill it out, you send it back. Why are we force feeding this down at the cost of taxpayers? There's no need for this. There's no need for it.
Mr. Strand.
Mr. Preston, maybe you can help me remember, but the vote we made in February, as I recall, wasn't to ask the county to consider voting by mail. We decided we wanted to have voting by mail. We didn't ask their permission. We decided in that vote, if I recall in February, to, in the future, have voting by mail. If I'm wrong, correct me.
Mr. Chair, no, it was to, Arlette and I, we went, I wasn't able to meet the meeting. I had another meeting, but we met with the county, that the instructions were to meet with the county to, it wasn't to proceed, but just as.
To facilitate our decision was what we asked, if I recall.
No, we didn't vote to go ahead with open voting, John. That's incorrect. It was basically, and Steve, I believe you were at the meeting. It was, because there's some ongoing discussions now with how much this is going to cost us, and I believe we don't know what that's going to be at this point.
Could somebody pull up that February motion?
I'm trying to do that quickly, but I don't know if that, was it in February, John?
That's what this memo says.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the date was, you know, John?
Don't know.
What was the date of the motion?
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you said you read it off.
No, it just says February. Mr. Chair, while we're looking for that information, I'll fill some space here. If I recall, when the school district had their elections, their special elections for their mill levies, I want to say their budget was about $25,000 to conduct an election.
This is crazy. Anybody quicker at this than I am?
I'm trying to.
I've got February 8th if somebody wants to look at the other ones.
Arlette's got February 8th. Greg, you want to look at February 20? Yeah.
All right, voting at home for the 2022 election.
Put your mic on.
Ty's got it.
Yeah, I got it here too.
Ty, you want to read it, or Steve, you want to read it?
Steve, I don't know if you want to read that section right there.
Okay. Commissioner Preston said the North Dakota Legislature passed statute in 2017 allowing counties to convert voting at home, VAH, and since that time, 33 of 50 counties implemented it for every election. She said lower voter turnout in 2018 primary election was 11% in Fargo. Eligible voters.
Steve, just do the motion.
Just the motion.
Oh, the motion. Okay.
I've got the motion.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Preston moved that a commissioner or commissioners be designated to work with the county to implement voting at home in 2022 and present the report to the city commission at the first meeting in June. So there should be a report, and we should be looking at that report. This doesn't say anything about this.
Read that again. That's not how I interpret it.
Commissioner Preston moved a commissioner or commissioners be designated to work with the county to implement voting.
To implement voting.
And get a report, John.
Yeah, so we voted to implement
So where's the
it.
report? I got no report, so if I don't have a report, then I'm not voting on this. If that's if we're gonna be that beholden to this motion, then give me the report.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just interject here. whether it was or not, because I would agree with John's interpretation here, we're talking about a budgetary item. So if we don't allocate the dollars, it's not going to happen anyway. So it is a budget item, a separate vote.
Steve, you were at the meeting. Was there any minutes or report done at that meeting in which Charlotte Preston met with your team?
With meeting with the county?
Yes.
There were no minutes kept, I would say, of that meeting.
So to Tony's, we don't have a report coming back from that. There was a request at that time to perhaps do mailing ballots, or were discussed with Mike Van Pleasure?
You want to answer that one, Steve?
We had a discussion regarding vote by mail, and I don't think that the county was very receptive to.
So actually, tonight's motion is you have a way which we can do it. You have a budget to it, and you would like that in the budget.
Right.
Basically.
And to be honest with you, this suggestion came from Mike. So he was the one that made the suggestion that we do it ourselves.
It was from a county official. Was it Mike or was
Yeah, it was Mike.
it Rick?
It was Mike.
Was it Mike? Okay.
Any further discussion? John Strand, I almost agree with you that it'd be nice as an effort to see if we get more voters out. And like you said, maybe see how it goes this time, because we did it because of COVID before. We've never pushed a mail-in voting before, so it would be different for the city, right?
It would be.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
What's the motion? Is it?
There's the motion to put it in the budget for mail-in.
Right.
Direct city administration to include $32,000 in the 2022 budget for the purpose of mailing out absentee ballots of applications to the voters who are residents of Fargo for the city election. Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
No.
Garrick.
No.
Mahoney,
Aye. Any other business of the commission tonight?
You have 29, right? I thought we pulled 29.
Oh, yeah. That was the last one. It's
There
the
was nothing in
project, the Mid-America Steel project.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's pull item 29, Mid-America Steel Project. Who's got that? Is it,
I was the one that pulled it down.
you're pushing
and-
Mark up to the table, Nicole, rather than yourself? Okay. So we have a bid on Mid-America Steel to take it down. That was the suggested item of consent?
Yeah, what you have in front of you, item number 29, is the contract for the mayor to sign with Rachel Contracting for the demolition of Mid-America Steel at $307,600.
And we have some developers that think they may want to have an interest in it. I see Mark here, but
I'm not,
don't
I
have
could,
that.
I could maybe go through the history. I guess I'm not 100% sure why all this got pulled.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Go ahead, Commissioner Preston.
Yeah, I'm the one that requested it pulled down just for the sake of answering the question posed by a couple of individuals that sent us emails. And the concern was the historical context of the buildings there and whether that had been fully vetted. And in my mind, we're so far down the road and this has been, oh boy. Is it dry in here or something? Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. It's so far down that road, but I just wanted to make sure, thank you. Make sure that, for one thing, it wasn't real evident from the agenda what this agenda item was. And let me just say, it would be really nice just to have a cover memo when there's no documentation with that agenda item. So that the public knows and understands what this agenda item is. At any rate, we're so far down the road, I would not support delaying it. And I just want to, I do have some water, thank you. Just wanted to pull it down just so that there's that acknowledgement of what it was and why we're moving forward with it.
Mr. Chair, can I ask one real quick question?
Go ahead.
So would it be possible, there's just a couple of the buildings that are that the developers are interested in. Some of them have had arson issues and are public safety nuisances. And so would it be possible that we could hold off on a couple of the buildings that the developers were questioning and do the rest? Is that a possibility? Thank you.
Yes, I mean, technically, maybe I should start from square one. The city bought Mid-America Steel in 2016. We had a contract to lease it back to Mid-America Steel until November of 2019. The holidays came, then the city started preparing for a flood, and then COVID came, so Mid-America Steel sat there for a year. March, there was a bad fire. Several people within the city met and talked about the danger factor, including the fire chief and the fire marshal. And it was decided we need to do something about the site just based on the challenges of monitoring and protecting that site. April 11th, another fire happened. In the City of Fargo Planning Department facilitated an EPA brownfield grant over the last several years, and a portion of that grant was to hire Stantec to actually put together a demolition plan for this site. We had that plan already prepared prior to this fire, and then it was decided we go ahead with the demolition of this. The tricky thing here is the engineer's estimate to tear down the entire site was $572,000. When we did the bids, we got $306,000 back. We're assuming that a majority of that was based on the amount of scrap iron on the site, based on the cost of scrap iron right now. The city has awarded Rachel Contracting on the May 17 City Commission agenda. We have 60 days to actually respond to that. I am assuming based on the contract and the bid specifications that were put together, we would probably have to start from scratch to try saving some of those buildings. But let me try explaining a little bit what's going on in this site. This is a drawing put together by SRF, a consultant the city hired to help identify what the redevelopment of this site would be. And once we identify a redevelopment of this site, it gives us the opportunity to be able to identify what type of hazardous material remediation the city would perform to accommodate whatever future development was going to be there. One of the challenges that we have is there's going to be a levee, and this piece of property was purchased for flood protection purposes. So there'll be a levee that kind of consumes a chunk right down the middle. But in addition to that, you can see right here on this line, Mid-America Steel has encroached in the BNSF right-of-way quite extensively. BNSF is working with us to get this removed completely out of the right-of-way. So there's some underlying factors that make some of this kind of challenging. We could certainly continue it and talk about this. We still have about another 30 days to get back to Rachel Contracting for the actual contracts signing. I maybe might want to lean to Eric a little bit as far as if there would be any repercussions by approving the award of demolition May 17th and maybe rewriting some of the specs on that bid process. I guess I'm kind of coming up with some options for us.
Chief is standing behind you. It seems like he wants to say something.
Good evening, Commissioners. I just, there's a cost to this, and this is a place where we continue to go, and I understand the desire to want to save things, but we've had 2 fires there. We're there multiple times. It's not just the fire department, it's the police department, it's the harm reduction unit out of public health that are back in there. It's an unsafe area. If we hold this up, we're going to continue to have to secure it, spend additional dollars. We've had an employee that's been injured there, and he's still off of work. It's a long-term injury. It's costing us money. The longer this sits there, the opportunities for that to continue are still out there. I don't want to hurt any more of our employees, so I think it's time to get it done.
Commissioner Preston.
Mr. Chairman, could I get a motion on the table perhaps, and we actually discuss the motion?
Sure.
I move to approve the contract and bond for project BP 21A1.
Second, you beat you.
John did a second on this one?
So he did too.
Any discussion? Commissioner Strand?
I say we get this done with and get it cleaned up and get ready for a new future.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Preston.
Aye.
Garrick.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Is there any other business I missed?
Well, there is. Yesterday, of course, I missed telling everybody it was Eric's birthday coming up, June 13th. But I'm going to give you forewarning because very seldom do we have a birthday land on a commission meeting. And so next meeting, June 28th, when our mayor's birthday unfolds, we should all bring cake.
All right.
Thank you. Move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.